Shri 𝗵𝗃 Patvari, the President of GCCI, and Shri Ajay H. Patel, Senior Vice President, GCCI, to please welcome and felicitate Honorable Shri Deepak Parekh, Chairman, HDFC Ltd. મારા માટે એક મોટી સમસ્યા છે. કદાચ આ ઇવેન્ટનું સૌથી અઘરામાં અઘરું પાસું અત્યારે છે. બિકોઝ દીપકભાઈની એવી ઈચ્છા છે કે એમના પરિચયમાં હું ઓલમોસ્ટ કાંઈ જ ના બોલું, પણ મારે એમના વ્યક્તિત્વની, એમની પ્રતિભાની ઊંચાઈને અનુરૂપ શબ્દોનો ઉપયોગ તો કરવો જ રહ્યો. There is little about him that is not known. Not only in his career in the world of finance, which is well documented, but his contribution as a business leader at large has also been written about. હું અમુક શબ્દોનો જ ઉપયોગ કરી રહ્યો છું એમના માટે. He is the reason for the super conglomerate that HDFC is. He is a statesman. He is the voice of corporate India. And he's a fan of Wimbledon and Cricket World Cup finals. Shri Deepak Parekh, our keynote speaker, will talk about the future of Indian economy.
Good morning to everyone, and the President of the Gujarat Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. 𝗵𝗃 Patvari, the Senior Vice President, Mr. Ajay Patel, past Presidents of the Chamber and the other committee members of the Chamber, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me as this special invite today. It is possibly the best time to be in Gujarat now. There is an electrifying buzz in the state. The recently concluded state elections is a vote of confidence, is a vote for continuity, and a vote acknowledging the consistent reform momentum in the state of Gujarat. India needs many more Gujarat models. The Gujarat model of development is a prototype for other states to follow. And why has this been possible? This is possible because of fiscal prudence. The state government Gujarat has remained a preferred manufacturing hub, a leader in ports, a leader in infrastructure, a leader in logistics, and even on the index of ease of doing business, Gujarat has moved up significantly. And this is very necessary for getting investments, both foreign investments and domestic investment. And much of this credit must go also to the Gujarat Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which for 73 years has been galvanizing the business community together and has worked together to improve the overall business environment in the state, and continues to play a pivotal role, especially in welcoming foreign delegations and encouraging foreign delegations to invest in the state of Gujarat. You must also remember that good things can be infectious. Vibrant Gujarat has now become vibrant India. so to speak. This is the level of optimism riding on the Indian economy today. But there is something more about Gujarat right now which is truly unique, and what I witnessed in the last half an hour in this center. The zest and verve of the centenary celebrations of 𝗗𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗺𝗃 Maharaj is an awakening and reiteration of the importance of the values that the socio-spiritual body, BAPS, stands for. Right now, it is befitting to pay respect to a pure and divine soul, His Holiness 𝗗𝗃𝗀𝗃 Maharaj, who continues to shine spiritual light on humankind and guide the world to be a better place. His time in this physical world is an embodiment of the virtues he believed in and he practiced, preached. His Holiness toiled relentlessly to spread his teachings of compassion and service across the world and was at the forefront of several charitable and humanitarian organizations. He believed that spirituality and integrity are the doors that unlock the path to progress. Spirituality and integrity, they are the two critical words he's used. That opens up the doors for the development, for the progress of any state or country. 𝗗𝗃𝗀𝗃 Maharaj was a person closely connected and aware of the workings of the world, a visionary and a guide who had the unique ability to inspire people to take on large challenges. We are also truly fortunate that his mentorship was so impactful on our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, especially in his early days, and provided him guidance, courage, and perhaps ultimately the conviction to take up the mantle of leading our country. 𝗗𝗃𝗀𝗃 Maharaj's legacy continues to inspire people across the world to imbibe the virtues of compassion, integrity, simplicity, and to contribute towards the upliftment and betterment of our society. His span of influence in the world was immense, and many global leaders acknowledge his contribution as a global ambassador of peace. To my mind, the philosophy of BAPS ultimately is about how to build more caring societies. This is the need of the hour. This is important, as they say, the future does not happen. The future is made. So let me now turn to the focus of our today's discussion, which is the future of the Indian economy. And as I've said, future does not happen, future is made by all of us. The year 2022 is almost over. It is also the time of the year when there's a lot of crystal ball gazing and predictions being made about the future. But even predicting the next year or the next few months has become extraordinarily challenging. Just let's see the beginning of this calendar year. Just see how 2022 started. 2022 was perceived at perceived at the beginning of the year. Began on a high note, and the sure shot of staging a strong recovery from COVID-19. It was a world that tackled pandemic, bounced back with resilience, and seemed almost invincible. Everyone agreed the worst was behind us. But 1 month into this year, the Russia-Ukraine war erupted. And unfortunately, even now, the end seems nowhere in sight. How wrong we were on our predictions of 2022. In summary, 2022 was far from the year of strong recovery as envisaged earlier. Before we talk of India, let me briefly talk about the global economy. The global outlook now has turned dangerous with recessionary clouds and several warning lights that are flashing red. Across the globe, we see economic crisis, political crisis, social crisis, trade crisis, debt crisis, currency crisis, cost of living crisis, climate change crisis, all these risks are playing out simultaneously. Some are calling it a polycrisis, global polycrisis. Others say it's a perma crisis, alluding to the fact that the crisis the world is going through is going to remain long and is more or less like permanent. And you can see it from the latest forecast. The global growth that was 6% in 2021, global growth 6%, will drop half to 3.1% in 2022 and will fall further in 2023 to 2.2%. Then recover in 2024 to 2.7%. We are nowhere near the 6% global growth which was there in 2021. This means that the global growth will continue to lose momentum year after year. The road to recovery is fraught with challenges. Globally high inflation will still be persistent, but the magnitude of interest rate hike by major central banks is likely to temper down in the months to come. Yet the overall milieu will be weaker confidence, weaker investment, higher uncertainty. On the geopolitical front, historically, there's always been a struggle for global power and control. Yet in the changing world order, global power and control will be commanded through three new pillars. First is an augmentation of advanced technologies, and much of this will be used for state surveillance. Second is an unprecedented modernization of military capabilities around the world. Countries are spending much larger amounts to equip themselves militarily and in defense, and the largest part of their capital budgets are going to strengthen their military operations, which is not a good sign, by the way. And third is the adoption of self-reliance. The President spoke of Atmanirbhar, self-reliance, to mitigate risks from the global supply chain which has been broken. Behind these three pillars lies the increased distrust amongst nations. There's rise of friendshoring, which is dealing only with trusted allies, and the emergence of new trade blocs based on diplomatic, strategic, and economic consideration. Unfortunately, globalization is taking a backseat, retreating. So what does 2023 look like for us in India? The US is likely to just escape tipping into recession. European Union will contract, but Asia offers hope of growth. Despite China's recent slowdown, one should not underestimate the potential of China. Though investors in the recent period have been skeptical about investing and growth in China due to the Chinese government tech meltdown, due to the reeling property markets in China, high non-performing loans of Chinese banks, the size of the economy is so large, and its zero COVID policy and lockdowns. However, the potential to bounce back will be stronger than all what we think. The downside for China is its domestic consumer spending and confidence remaining weak. Let me turn to India now. Everyone is saying India is a bright spot. We are in a good position. It's also said that we are a good country in a difficult neighborhood. The key question one needs to ask is, does India look attractive because the rest of the world is reeling, the rest of the world is in trouble and likely to tip into recession? Or India looks attractive because it's truly a recognition of the favorable long-term structural reforms, structural trends in the Indian economy? I firmly believe the latter. In my 50-odd years of working life, I have never been optimistic about the future of our country as I am today. Someone asked me, are we decoupled? India is not decoupled from the globe, from the world, but from an estimated GDP growth rate of just under 7% for 2022, India could lose a bit of growth momentum in 2023, but we will still remain the fastest growing large economy in the world. Headline news on India's growth potential focuses on timelines when India could possibly become a $5 trillion or a $7.5 trillion economy. I think the President, Mr. Parekh, also spoke about it. We are the 5th largest economy. When can we become the 3rd largest economy? Or perhaps when India could achieve, we could achieve the much desired label of being a developed economy. To me, what is more exciting is where I would focus more attention is on India's domestic consumption. The domestic consumption-driven economy transforms over the next decade what the future trajectory could look like. See, India is not an export-oriented country, unlike China. We survive because of the massive local demand, the domestic consumption. We are a domestic consumption story. Growth will continue to be powered by India's rising middle class. Again, in a recent McKinsey report, it says in the next 5-7 years, there'll be maximum number of people that will go into the middle class will be in India. Total out 60% of the people moving into the middle class will be from India. It is estimated the number of households with incomes in excess of 30 lakhs per annum will rise 5-fold to 25 million by 2030. Take, for instance, the per capita income. India's per capita income today is $2,300. This is likely to double to 5,200 in the next 5 years. Our services, the GDP has agriculture, industry, and services. Services share in India's GDP will grow from 55 to 64%. So basically, it's a service-driven economy. The confluence of forces transforming the Indian economy is focused on improving the day-to-day lives of our people, thrust on digitization across all sectors of the economy, especially the financial sector, clean energy transition, along with increasing energy security for the country. Capitalizing on geopolitical triggered shifts wherein India becomes a preferred destination in the supply chain of major companies. This is an exciting proposition. How do we get there? But we must remember that there are many other countries competing on the China plus one strategy, such as Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, amongst others. What is not known, and which will be a surprise to all of you, is the large workforce we have. How we stack up with regarding manufacturing wages per hour against our competitive countries. Take, for instance, China's labor cost today is $7.1 per hour. Malaysia's labor cost is $4.7 per hour. Vietnam's labor cost is $1.6 per hour. India is under $1 per hour. It is 80 cents per hour. That is where our competitive advantage lies. Both the center and the state governments are conscious that ease of doing business needs to be a continuous effort and continuous work in progress to attract long-term investments. Some of the recent marquee investments in manufacturing in India recently are setting up 3 semiconductor factories in India across 3 states, Gujarat, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu. The production of iPhones in India. India is going to be one of the larger countries going to export iPhones to the world. Tata Airbus aircraft manufacturing unit, they have signed that aircrafts will be made in India, Airbus and Tatas. So this all augurs well for the Indian economy in the future. It has been 8 years since the government launched its Make in India program. This trust thrust of the government, supplemented with the PLI, Production Linked Incentive Scheme, of prioritizing around 14 sectors with an outlay of over 2 lakh crores, is now seeing tangible outcomes. India's strength as a service-driven economy is well known. Besides this, our dominance of being the back office of the world. We are the back office of the world. India is now a preferred destination for data centers of global companies. They call it global capability centers. And many of the large multinational companies have set up independent global data centers in India. These are centers of excellence typically set up by large multinational corporations to provide specialized services in technology, in R&D, and specializing in engineering, banking, financial services, pharma, retail, amongst other sectors. So today there is no dearth of investment opportunities in India. And what makes me feel so optimistic about that is what makes me more optimistic about the future of our country. I keep telling investors that India has not even scratched the surface for as far as financial penetration is concerned. And let me give you a few examples. You know, everyone does household debt to the GDP. It's a well-known number, household debt to GDP. How much are the people of a country are investing or borrowing money for their requirements, be it a house, a car, or business, or whatever. India's household debt to GDP ratio is 35%, is amongst the lowest for a large economy. In US, this ratio is 80%. In China, it is 62%. Thailand, it is 90%. South Korea, it is 109%. We are still at 35%. Consumer debt, household debt to GDP. Take the business which I am, mortgage to GDP. Mortgage to GDP in India is only 11%. Only 11. In China, it is 18. US, it is 52, and North European, it is 90s. Insurance penetration stands at only 4.2% in India, 4.2% of the GDP, compared to a global average of over 7. Life insurance penetration is 3.2%. Non-life is just 1% of GDP. The best is the mutual fund industry. Mutual fund penetration in India is 17% of GDP, 17, compared to the world average of 80. Let me give you one Chinese number. China's fund management industry size is $6 trillion, even in a weak economy like this. $6 trillion the people of China have invested in mutual funds in China. $6 trillion. And how many investors? 60 crore investors, 60 crores retail investors. In comparison, what is our numbers? Our fund management industry size is 468 billion. We're not even a trillion. They are 6 trillion. We are half a trillion. And our retail customers are 2.5 crores. Our retail customers in all the mutual funds in India, only 2.5 crores. China is 60 crores. Look at the gap. Look at the opportunity we have in the financial sector, be it insurance, be it banking, be it borrowing, domestic borrowing, mortgages, whatever. These are immense opportunities for growth, and they're only going to go one way up. There has been a lot of focus on the external sector in the recent period. Inward remittances. India attracts the highest amount of remittances from Indians overseas. This year, 2022, the Reserve Bank number is $100 billion. In the whole year of 2022, $100 billion remittance have come from Indians living abroad. And no country gets this. Next is Philippines with some $40 billion. This is what provides us a cushion for so far as the external sector and currency is concerned. It is important to understand that through the year to date, the Indian rupee has depreciated by around 10%. India's currency has depreciated much less compared to other countries, both developed and emerging economies. Japanese currency depreciated 30%. We had done 10%. Japanese is a developed economy, even then to the dollar. And the rupee depreciation is not a reflection on any structural change in the Indian economy. It was only triggered by the unprecedented growth, unprecedented dollar strength. This reflects the stability of India's macroeconomic environment and timely tactical interventions by the Reserve Bank of India in the currency markets. So there are a lot of positives in the Indian economy today, but in equal measure, there are high expectations. There are massive expectations of investors that India will do brilliantly well. So we have to do our part also. Expectations are very high on delivery, on higher growth from India in a globally slowing world. Today we enjoy absolute political stability. We have vaccine security and we have food security. We have maintained good relations with most countries and is increasingly holding our turf in the international arena. We have just taken over, as you all know, the presidency of the G20. The country, we are likely to play a more pivotal role on international economic issues, and we are being seen as a balancing voice in the global arena. But where are we vulnerable? We are vulnerable because we import 85% of our crude oil requirements, 85%. Sometimes it happens when the crude oil is $130, it's almost 60% of our import bill. One item takes more than half of our import bill. There remains a web of complexity as far as forecasting global oil prices, and no one can be right. Despite the recent price caps imposed by G7 countries on Russian oil, prices recently dropped to around $76 per barrel, which was quite perplexing. And it was not that OPEC countries were cutting supplies. The demand from developed economy has slowed down because of recessionary trends. Oil prices have tempered a bit, come down a bit, not because of reduction in production by OPEC, oil-producing countries, but the demand from developed economy has come down because they fear an inflation. There is a massive slowdown. US has had 2 quarters of negative GDP growth rate. In short, volatility in the commodity prices is likely to remain, but India is right in diversifying our energy imports and ensuring it optimizes the cost of energy imports. You know, we are getting 30% of our oil requirements from Russia at a discounted price. And this was not appreciated by the Western countries and US. But we are paying in rupees because of the Russia is not allowed, it's a banned country to work with. We are paying in our local currency. It doesn't have to go through the global financial clearing system. On the fiscal front, India has remained prudent and committed to coming to a reducing glide path on the fiscal deficit. Deficit was reduced from 9.2% during the peak of the pandemic to 6.4% for the current financial year. The budget we are expecting in the next 1st of February, in a month or so, it will be the last full budget before the 2024 general elections. Normally, which is the last budget, the government gives away a lot of freebies and advantages to get voted back. I don't think it's going to happen this time. The present government is in control, the present government is power, the present government is confident of coming back. So I don't think you'll see many giveaways, increased farmer subsidy, fertilizer, all these freebies as they say. In fact, I feel the budget in government will increase its capital expenditure on infrastructure, which we need for our economy. A common question being asked today is that if the outlook on the Indian economy is so robust, why is the private sector not investing? Why are the private sector not putting money into the capital expenditure? Corporate India has come out of the cycle of having over-leveraged balance sheet. Many Indian companies, as you know, the last 10 years borrowed a lot of money. Banks had large number of non-performing loans to write off. I think the corporate balance sheets have become stronger. Corporate balance sheets have been deleveraged. Debt has come down. Banks have become stronger. They've written off the past mistakes and they're much stronger. You can see how public sector banks are the darling of the capital market in the last 1 month or so. Every day you see public sector banks going up. The point is that unless capacity utilization goes up, companies are not going to invest in a new factory or a new plant. Now we see capacity utilization up to 75%. So one hopes that in 2023, Indian corporate sector will start thinking and putting money in new projects. So corporate India is really in a wait and watch mode as it assesses global demand and is also concerned that net revenues, though revenues have been strong, higher interest rates and higher raw material costs has impacted their profitability. Again, I always maintain that India grows only when India builds. Right now, we are in a strong position, so now is the time to address some of the tougher issues. For private investment to become a stronger engine of growth for India, there is need to strengthen our legal framework and minimize potential disputes, which many infrastructure projects have succumbed to. We must have a more efficient legal framework where decisions are taken quicker and not 8-10 years as it happens now. Arbitration also takes a long time, and whichever party loses in the arbitration, after arbitration they go to court. So it's become a 10-year process to solve a dispute. So maintaining the sanctity of a contract is paramount. And there are several instances where arbitration awards get challenged, leading to long litigation processes. So we also need large construction and engineering companies. I have seen in the front of my eyes 5 or 6 engineering EPC contractors, what they call, disappear or get into major financial troubles. I don't want to name them, but they're all well known because they're all NCLT cases. But there's only 1 or 2 companies standing who is building India today, Larsen & Toubro and Shapoorji. We don't have any other large contracting firm that can build roads, bridges, dams, the speed at which and L&T is doing. I think India needs 5 L&Ts. We have 1. We also need to unclog our courts. 5 crore pending cases are there in courts today, 5 crore. We need to become a less litigious society. Delayed justice is a moral sin. Investors do find India attractive, but where there will be a greater confidence if investors truly believe that the investment policies are fair and the investment environment is stable and there is a level playing field that demonstrates it's non-discriminatory in terms of policies, and there is stability and clarity in tax regulations. Again, in tax, more tax rules are grey, they're not black or white, which is what worries all the corporate sector also. So there remains a lot of hope for us that India will deliver on its promised potential. The world believes in us, and the world believes in our growth story. We have to make it succeed. As I conclude, it is befitting to be guided by Gandhiji's incisive words, describing the 7 sins of society, which go as politics without principle, wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, knowledge without character, commerce without morality, silence without humanity, and worship without sacrifice. So in the ultimate analysis, India's path to success is truly imbibing the spirit of BAPS in every sphere of activity we undertake. Season's greetings to all of you. Hope you have a good year end and Happy New Year. And according to me, finally I'll say the best time for India is about to come. It's not yet come, but it's round the corner. So we are in for better times as we move forward. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Shri Deepak Parekh ji, for filling us with so much of hope and optimism, for providing us with a worldview of global economy, geopolitical equations, and explaining us about the future of Indian economy. He explained to us about the opportunities and threats that the Indian economy facing in future. And the most important aspect in the last part, he explained about the spiritual quotient of India. Budget માં કંઈ મળશે નહીં.